everybody, and welcome to SparkofVintage. My name is Cindy, and I am the owner, head treasure hunter, and creator here at SparkofVintage, and we're glad that you're here. Today we have an exciting video. It is our summer flippin' frenzy. So I'm part of Sonnet's Garden Blooms creative team, and our group got together and decided to exchange secret items with each other. We didn't know what we were going to receive, and we have to flip them and make them into something exciting. And this time I get to trade with Sondra at Midwest Charm, and I will link her site in the comments here below so that you can follow Sondra. She's a prolific creator. She's super creative, and I know you're going to love following her as well. So let's take a look at what she sent me. So she sent me, I love ephemera, and she sent me some really cool old vintage envelopes. And the postmarks are like 1944, 1969, 1944. They're just really cool old stamps, old postmarks, and I think they're gonna be fun to create something with. Also in my Flippin' Frenzy box, I got these two little stands with the little scalloped edges. So I already have an idea of what I want to do with those. An adorable little kettle, aluminum, lightweight. I also got this great little bless the kitchen sign, so that's going to be fun to flip. Sondra went really easy on me this time. This adorable little bird on a wire, and I would say the ultimate of the group was this great little faux book box that's actually a little treasure hider. I know exactly what I'm gonna do with this. I think this piece is going to inform what I do with the whole rest of the group. I'm gonna try to create it as a vignette where everything kind of matches together. So stick around, we'll do our summer frenzy flip together. And also at the end, be sure and stick around and follow the next creators that are coming up in our chain, and you'll be able to follow everybody from the Sonnet's Garden Blooms Summer Flippin' Frenzy group. So again, thank you so much for being here, and let's get started. Well, this is the piece that inspired the entire series of projects. Sondra sent me this Bless the Kitchen sign, and I have had this green gray paint from Liquitex that I could not wait to use. And I thought, let's just make a decrepit motel sign. I'm using the letter stamps from IOD because they're a little bit larger than my normal stamp sets, and they also have that distressed look that I wanted for the motel sign. I decided I wanted to do some layering with the stamping, so I used the masks that came with the IOD stamps. If you haven't used masks before, they're just little plastic sheets that cover your original stamping design so you can stamp over it and create some dimension. And because I was going to be using embossing ink, I knew I did not want it to touch any of the part of the original letter stamping. So I used one of my Tim Holtz really old school vintage Halloween stamps to create those crickety woods so that I could emboss it in the next step. The masks peel right off. I was just careful not to smudge the embossing ink as I lifted them. And then I applied Tim Holtz's Distress Embossing Glaze in Hickory Smoke to get that craggly look. Embossing glaze is great because it creates a lot of dimension and kind of a shiny, textury appearance when it's dried. After the embossing glaze had cooled, I applied a couple of different Distress archival colors in jet black as well as ground espresso. I wanted to create some dimension on the piece and something that would kind of stand out. So I used this foundation paper from Vicki Boutin. This is an extra thick paper, certainly heavier than cardstock. And I was able to stamp it with this great skull stamp from Tim Holtz, and then use my fine detail embossing powder from Recollections in order to get all of those fine details on the skull. Well, what good is a decrepit motel sign if the place hasn't been condemned? I love this stamp, another one of Tim Holtz's great Halloween releases. But this time, instead of using ink, I used lumberjack plaid distress paint. The paint will cover over the glazing and it won't slide off, and it also won't just sink into the paint that's already on the piece. So it's a great technique to use. Because I wanted that little bit of extra movement with the skull, I added one of those little bobbler mechanisms to the back of it and then attached it to the wood using Distress Collage Medium. It's a little bit heavier glue and it would allow it to take a little action. Because Sondra had sent me so many incredible keys, I thought I'll make some motel-inspired vintage bookmarks using these balsam wood bookmarks that I had found at Joann's several years ago. I taped all the bookmarks together so at one time I could decoupage all the backs of the bookmarks using some of my Roy-cycled decoupage papers. Once the decoupage paper side had dried, I flipped it over and just did a random collage with different pieces of ephemera, scrapbook paper, just those little leftover bits that we always have. I learned this technique from Tim Holtz in one of his classes, and I thought it would make a great cover for the bookmarks. Once I trimmed the bookmark collage down, I found some really adorable surprises. That's what I love about that technique. You really never know what you're going to get with the final product. I just sanded down the sides of the bookmarks, kind of cleaned them up a little bit, and then applied a little bit of that black paint to the edges, because I wanted them to look like vintage motel keys. I stamped large numbers on the back of each of the bookmarks, embossed them with different colors, and then outlined them with a Sharpie marker to give them a little bit of depth. And then I kind of grunged up the edges again just to give them a little bit more of a dirty look. I had painted the keys black, but then I applied some different metallic waxes from Finnabar in order to give them a little bit of chunkiness and depth so that I could tie them to the bookmarks. This little aluminum kettle was so adorable, but then I glanced over and saw cast iron paint from Fusion on my maker's table and knew I just had to paint it to make it look like a little cauldron. Beetle Black from Martha Stewart is one of my favorite blacks of all time, and I used it to paint the little display stand, that extra key that I had from Sondra, as well as the little bird. I already had this low resin skull in my stash because I had poured some of these Finnabar molds a couple of Halloweens ago. This one never fully gelled hard, so it was the perfect piece to wrap around the aluminum kettle. Once the skull had dried, I did some highlighting using Finnabar's metallic waxes in white pearl. I applied some random gold transfers from IOD's Gilded collections to make it look a little spooky. I used some heavy body gel to attach the pot to the base that Sondra sent me. This is the project I've been thinking about making for almost a year, but could not find the right book. So I was so excited when Sondra sent me this book, and it was the perfect piece for this project. I painted the entire book, both inside and out, with that beetle black paint from Martha Stewart. I was lucky and already had some miscellaneous resin pieces from Halloween last year already in my stash. And then I also had this beautiful Gothic gate that I had already had poured from my Finnabar molds collection. I decided to line the inside of the box with these faux wallpapers from Tim Holtz's Halloween collection. They have the actual look and feel of vintage wallpaper. And this beautiful random piece of decoupage paper from Finnabar was the perfect match. I did some detail painting with acrylic paints on the various resin pieces, and then did some highlighting on the Gothic gate using Finnabar's metallic waxes. Well, this is the rice paper from the painted photographer that's been rattling around in my head for almost a year, just dying to make a project with it. And I knew it would make a great cover for this book. I used Distress Collage Medium to apply the rice paper to the book, and then heavy body gel to attach the resin piece for the Gothic archway. I used Crackle Accents from Ranger ink. This medium just gives you like a glossy finish, but as it dries, it does start to crack and crackle. Now, the challenge with it is you never know what it's going to do. It may crack a lot, or it may decide it's not going to crack at all. But whatever it did, I knew it would be a great piece to protect the rice paper, as well as to create like a window or broken glass effect. I also used a little bit of distressed crayon to get into those crack grooves and make it look even more crackled. Well, that's a wrap for this flippin' frenzy. Well, thanks again for joining us at Spark of Vintage. And be sure and stay tuned to see all the other makers who have participated in the flipping frenzy. See you soon.